Being a Flash kinda sucks. It's unanimous among the fanbase that it's the most busted power to have, however the comics do not display that. I will never let go of this moment. How are you, a speedster, getting stabbed by Deathstroke? On top of that, you have insane drawbacks if you're too fast. If you try and push yourself too hard, you might lose yourself to the Speed Force, or if you're too slow, you might lose yourself to the Speed Force as well. If you think that's bad, there's a slim chance that you might also be stuck in purgatory. I mean, no other hero has to worry about being stuck in a time loop when they use their powers but the Flash. However, that's the tip of the iceberg. You have to fight insane villains as well, like Reverse Flash or Zoom, Cobra, and even this ugly motherfucker, Abracadabra, who was a man from the future using insane tech to pretend to be a magician. Remember him for later. But today we're going to talk about a very unique problem with the Flash. That is the insane disrespect. Wally busts his ass every day to save people, gets caught in life and death scenarios, does everything he can, but would you believe me if I told you this guy got sued just for doing his job? Let's talk about it. We start with Flash issue 88. Wally's taking down the most ran through supervillain alias there is. I mean, there have been so many Chillblains. For Golden Glider, cuffing season is year round. Linda Park, one of the best superhero counterparts, reminds Wally of this lawsuit he got served last issue. You see, in issue 84, he saved these people in a mall from this guy named Razor. A mall worker said she got hurt because of Wally's inaction, so he's going to defend himself. After he's done signing autographs, what do you know? The woman who's suing him pulls up. Wally runs to tell her off, but stops after seeing her face. This is Allison Armitage, a person who was burned alive during that fight in issue 84. Seeing her face obviously upsets Wally, and as he recounts the fight, he thinks about his actions, and the news crew bombards him with questions. Suddenly, he runs away, and I love this panel of their faces becoming more blurred. I have officially hopped on the anti-lightning bandwagon. Fueled by guilt of not doing enough, Wally pushes himself 110%. First, he saves this woman from these men trying to force themselves on her, then he saves this family from a motorbike gang. The father recounts Wally looking like a blur of crimson and gold. What a baller description. Finally, we circle back to the goober from before, Chillblain. You just see Wally costume tattered, a whirlwind of red, the Scarlet Speedster living up to his name, pushing himself so no one ever gets hurt again. This reminds me a lot of Kingdom Come, where Flash elevates himself to this level, being this constant force in the city, stopping crime before it even has a chance to happen. However, for our story, this takes a toll on Wally as he collapses on the ground, being cared for by the best girlfriend in DC Comics, Linda Park. The vultures come circling around, the news crew wants you to get a scoop, catching Wally at his lowest moment. All of that pain and exhaustion from the last issue is still here. However, in issue 89, we start immediately in the courtroom. We see a woman stuck in a fire, no way out. Through the smoke, she saw Flash, and when she's questioned if he saw her, she says he never bothered to look. We just see this woman screaming and crying, shocked at the Flash not doing his job, which is to help ordinary people when they're in trouble. I mean, it couldn't have taken him more than a second. Then we cut to the present day as Allison is crying, recounting that night, how she blacked out and felt pain in her legs, but only after she woke up did she learn they'd have to be amputated. I mean, this is horrible, but you'd think she would have more smoke for fucking Razor, man. He started that shit. But you'll learn quickly that logic does not enter the prosecution's arguments. They ask her to point the quote-unquote hero out, and she does. Then we get our intro page explaining that Allison is actually suing him for $20 million. Holy shit. The last line kind of breaks my heart though, because Wally thinks that she is right, that he should have been fast enough. I understand you might agree with that if you're a modern Flash fan, but read the beginning of Mark Waid's run, or actually read the first few issues of the new Teen Titans. Wally used to be the slowest Flash actually. He's only gotten faster as time goes on. Back to the court case, we see Wally's attorney, who works for the Barry Allen Foundation. He talks about how strange it is that Allison's lawyer, Mr. McCullough, took on the case. How he's the most successful trial lawyer, an absolute wizard. Bit of foreshadowing. Why would someone as established as he is destroy the reputation with this flimsy case? We then get to hear the prosecution's nonsense argument, just really trying to insult Wally for being too slow. The judge tries to rein him in, saying you can only make statements that are a matter of public record. Basically, stick to the facts. But Mr. McCullough just says, "But Your Honor, I have." and we see a gun being pulled out from a briefcase and pointed at the smug bastard. Of course, Wally jumps into action, catching the bullet before it can hit this douchebag, who mind you hasn't even broken a sweat. We then get Wally's narration as he realizes this was just a lawyer stunt, some real Saul Goodman bullshit, and he played right into it. Of course, the judge calls for order, threatening him with a state bar and how this might affect his reputation. The judge then says, we'll discuss what sort of magic trick you pull to sneak in a handgun past security. Magic trick. Wizard. Interesting. Mr. McCullough apologizes, but Wally and his lawyer know it's BS. This dude is powered up from that shit. He segues into his arguments about public trust in superheroes, in this particular case of betrayal, how he asks superheroes to protect and serve as they are granted police powers, which I didn't know was an actual thing. McCullough even says that Wally is a licensed law enforcement officer because of his membership with the Justice League, so I guess not all of them are vigilantes. Then we get into the defense. Wally's lawyer talks about compassion and how much he cares. Allison, of course, does not feel that way, but then he says, do you know what he was doing when you were in trouble? How Razor tried to destroy the entire mall, how he snapped the cables of an elevator, and Wally, with some quick thinking, counteracted the downward force with a stream of water, giving them a safe landing, saving all these people. Then we get Wally recounting the night himself, how he only had 3 seconds to save 10 people in the elevator. He literally says to the cop, is there anyone in that fire? Which the cop says no, so Wally decides not to search, needing to focus. If anyone should be at fault, it should be Razor first and then the cop. But even with that argument, we see Wally look down and think to himself he feels ashamed. After Allison agrees that it might have been impossible for Wally to save her and those 10 people, she says it could be true, but it isn't right. And we see Wally's narration agreeing. During court recess, we see Wally stop these bad guys. He gets put in a situation that is another trolley problem, and he somehow figures out a solution where no one dies. He then thinks to himself how that's the gift of speed and the responsibility of it. After lunch, we see all these character witnesses, people who either know Wally or just got saved by him or saw him save someone. Their defense looks rock solid now, but after all this stress, exhaustion, and mental strain, Wally realizes that he is their only weakness. Wally's lawyer begins and says, did you search the fire? Wally of course says no, but he should have. His lawyer says, how? You only had so much time. You dealt with the present danger. Superheroes must know how it feels to make hard choices. Wally mutters, no I don't. His lawyer says, I'm sorry, what was that? Wally then shouts, no I don't. Damn it, I never had to choose before. And then we just get this panel. Wally sitting under this harsh light, surrounded by a quiet darkness. His lawyer now realizes why Wally is so messed up about this. It's the first time he's ever had to make a choice, and more importantly, it had dire consequences. But everyone has to make choices. That's what being a human means. However, his lawyer asks him, he says, who are you, God? Wally says, no, I'm the Flash. Then learn the difference. He then grills Wally on this, saying how did you know that 3 seconds would be enough time to save 10 lives? Wally didn't. He then says, in those 3 seconds, did you do all that you could do? Wally avoids answering by saying, I can race lightning. His lawyer presses him again. Did you do all that you could do? Wally says, I'm the fastest thing on earth. He then shouts this time, did you do all that you could do? Wally looks down and says, yes. As Allison looks away, realizing there's no one to blame anymore. Then we get back to the prosecution. Wally is even more frazzled from his own lawyer's questioning. He's in the middle of a crisis and he is tired. McCullough then asks a simple question. What's it like to run? Wally is confused. The slime ball continues, saying speed is the driving force of your life, right? So surely you can preach to us the joy of unbridled mobility. In fact, perhaps you can ascribe it to my client. After all, it's thanks to your inaction that she'll never again taste that simple freedom. That really got to Wally. I mean, that was really fucking slimy. This lawyer is winding him up and taunting him, getting into his head, just straight evil, like abnormally evil, even for a lawyer. These past 2 issues have broken Wally beyond belief, and because of that, this moment happens. McCullough then says that Wally said he wished he could remove her pain, but how could he perform that miracle? You can't simply just wave a magic wand and say, hocus pocus. Alakazam, you can't just say, and then you just see Wally shout, abracadabra. Leaping from his seat, Wally zips around the lawyer, frantically shouting, it's you, isn't it, Kadabra? What are you wearing, a mask? A disguise? As he rips apart this man. You see Wally has been fighting this madman named Abracadabra for a while. All those mentions of magic, the weird appearance of this lawyer, this whole elaborate ruse stunk of a setup, but Wally, after losing his mind and attacking a lawyer in front of the entire court, was wrong. Abra was not in disguise. This was just a regular lawyer. Unfortunately, Wally gets dragged away by the cops, trying to convince everyone that he's right. So now Wally's in jail, he's getting sued for assault, and it's all over the news. You see Wally just standing in the rain, looking at his costume, thinking of this ugly, evil motherfucker. Now I do think you should finish this comic on your own. The next issue is issue 90. However, I will spoil it here. So after Wally's on the run from the law, freaking out everyone he knows, and talking like Charlie Day from this meme, you find out all of his schizo delusions are actually right, and Abracadabra was actually behind everything. For a minute there, I really thought that Wally was done for. But before I end it off for today, I want to announce something. I'm doing face cam stuff. I know it's a little new, it's a little interesting, but I've been planning this for a while now. We want to do new content like live streams, commentary, reactions to trailers, that sort of things, even theories, man, you know? Honestly, all I want to do is just try new content and explore. Now, if you guys like my old style of videos, you'll still see that, but now you'll just see, new videos on top of that. I appreciate you guys for rocking with me for so long. Big shout out to all you Watchtower members you see here. Huge shout out to all the OG7 members. We have my day one Cable, we got Zuzu Bazuzu, we got Aquamarine Adenine, of course we have Dennis, then Magnolia Soldier, we got new names like Transaction 05, and of course Henry Barsham, then we got Joey or Let Him Hear Joe, and last but not least, Shane Stapler, my dog. Thank you guys for watching, stay tuned for more.